All right. Hi, Forrest. How are you?
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
I had to ask you right off the bat, is Forrest Rivers your real name?
So my real name is actually Michael Lenz, and Forrest Rivers is my pen name that I've used for both my books now, and it's kind of an ode to nature.
Okay, well, it's a nice name, and, it conjures up nature and images of serenity. So that's good. You're a writer, you're a teacher, and a speaker. And are you currently in North Carolina now?
So I'm currently in North Carolina, up in the Smoky Mountains, and it's very beautiful up here.
Yeah, I've been through there. It is very beautiful. It's a nice part of the country. So, tell us a little about your writing. What sort of stuff do you write?
So I write a lot about spiritual themed books about spiritual uplift and personal empowerment. Nature's a big theme of mine and its healing qualities. And I dabble in short stories, in nonfiction, kind of more self help, poetry, yeah, kind of everything in between. So fiction and nonfiction.
Okay, is there a particular book that you're promoting today on the show?
I am. The book is called COVID-19 in Humanity's Spiritual Awakening, and it was just released in the last couple weeks.
Okay, why don't you give us a synopsis of the book?
Sure. So the book is about. It's meant to be a positive and uplifting piece about how we can use COVID-19 and the suffering that this pandemic has created for our own personal empowerment and heightened consciousness. It's a little bit of a different take on a period in our history that is kind of looked at with doom and gloom. And my idea is to say there's a real opportunity here to work with all the suffering that these times have created to better ourselves. And each chapter sort of looks at a different aspect of the kind of opportunities that COVID's created for our own awakening.
I had this conversation with somebody else, and we talked about we needed some kind of a event to unite the world. I think you can even go back as far as Ronald Reagan, who talked about that the easiest way to unite the world would be to have the Martians invade, and we'd all point our guns at them instead of at each other, right? I think
Yes.
he made that speech to the United Nations 40 some years ago. But he was correct in the sense that we need a common cause to bring mankind together. Uh, I'm not all that thrilled that it's going to be a virus. I think that's a pretty dreary thing to unite. I'd rather see Martians coming myself. But be that as it may, do you think that that we have been successful in uniting around the cause of ridding the world of this virus or not? Because all I see is a lot of political maneuvering and game playing with this, and I don't see a lot of positive coming together uh, realities involved with COVID. What do you think?
So I definitely think, sadly, there's been a lot of politicizing of COVID. However, I think, and that's frustrated attempts at unity, to be sure. But I think that individually, it has created enormous opportunities for spiritual growth. And if we take advantage of these opportunities, the potential is there to have an expanded collective consciousness. In other words, we could really use this to unite if we actually do the work on ourselves. I've always kind of believed that things like unity that coming together you speak about, Douglas, can really only come about once we've done that inner work on ourselves. And in that regard, COVID's been unbelievable for that. I outlined that in the book. It's made just a couple facets off the top of my head. It's forced us to be more to face our fear of death, for one, with obviously with the escalating death tolls and with all the sickness, we've had to come to existential terms with our own death. It's also been an enormous opportunity for people to reinvent their careers or to find something they're more soulfully connected to and passionate about. In the book, I outline numerous instances where people I've encountered have used this opportunity to branch off and do something that's a little bit more meaningful and connects them more to the world and other people. Um, Another thing that's come out of this is the realization that we can improve on being a better democracy. From all of this, we can improve on being more caring and compassionate people out of all of this. I think there's been a lot of time for reflection that COVID has given us. And we may not see the effects yet of the unity, but the potential for inner work that could lead to that is there.
You're right in one sense that it starts from the individual level. And I think that this pandemic has certainly exposed the mass of the world to the sort of fragility of life and the fact that, anything can come along and kill you. And while you're busy worrying about the most trivial things that people tend to worry about, it might help them to redefine their terms, saying, you know what, maybe I should not worry so much about that and worry more about my family, my children, things that are close to you, things that matter.
It's given us more. It's given us more gratitude.
Yeah.
It's helped a lot of people. I talk about this, reprioritize their lives and realize that, while obviously our jobs are important and having enough money to get by is important, that's not all there is in this world. It's made us acknowledge, like you said beautifully, that life is fragile. It's beautiful and it's precious. And, the opportunity for that gratitude has been presented through this.
I hope so. I hope that at least people can see that. I'm not sure that a lot of people are looking at it that way, but you know what? Maybe your book will help to help shed some light on that. Yeah.
I hope so. I'm hoping to kind of shift, add some light to it, shed some light on that, and to shift the narrative of how we look at COVID.
How's it affected you personally, COVID?
How has it affected me personally? Well, for one, like many, I was when COVID hit, I went to total virtual teaching. So it's been a little bit of a trip going from teaching face to face. That's my to more virtual lessons. And so my day job, which was I teach as a college professor. My day job, I've been home, teaching on Zoom. And I also know a lot of people who have gotten COVID. And I've been fortunate not to have gotten it myself, but I know quite a few people who have come down with it. And I've sort of seen that, been exposed to that, seen some of the, suffering that it's caused people. And like many people have experienced that. And my sister works, which is kind of curious. My sister works as an ER doctor in the COVID units. So I've heard quite a bit about it, and I've seen the way that it's affected her, through having to engage and be with death and dying people so often. And that was one of the impacts, that is in this book, I think, too.
Have you been vaccinated?
I have not been vaccinated yet. Nope.
Okay. Because it was my understanding that teachers were kind of in the front of the line to get vaccinated, so I didn't know if you had it yet or not.
Yeah, it hasn't been. I haven't had it offered yet, and I'm still a little bit uncertain about it right now.
Uncertain about taking the vaccine?
Right away, at least.
What is your concern? That it's going to make you worse? That it's going to make you sick, actually? I mean, a lot of people have that concern.
Yeah. I just want to see a little bit more research. That's all. I wouldn't go one way, or I wouldn't say I'm going one way or the other yet. Just I would want to see a little bit more research about some effects. That's all.
You mentioned a word back in the conversation about COVID and spirituality. And when you refer to spirituality, that's a big topic. And we only have about 2 minutes left. So I want to see if we can do a 2 minute a 2 minute version on spirituality. But I believe what you're referencing is what we were talking about, is that with COVID, it's going to give people a chance to sort of reflect on their life, to sort of maybe reprioritize what they think is important and what they think is not, and maybe give people a little bit of insight as to, I don't want to use the word the afterlife, but it's the only word I can think of right now,
Yeah,
because
you could use the term the afterlife, the greater reality, um, the things that go unnoticed uh, in our physical kind of plane of consciousness. I think this period of inner reflection gives us more insight into simply put, the deeper truths of our being. That interconnectedness, our relationship to each other, our relationship to the planet, our relationship to everything, because we're a part of everything. And I think this, when I say spirituality, I really am referring to the inner search for deeper truths and meaning that go beyond kind of the physical day to day of our waking reality.
right.
And I think that this has great potential for that.
The term I've heard is called collective consciousness.
Oh, it's a beautiful term.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the one I've heard. Yeah.
Collective consciousness, you know, our inherent interrelation.
Right. And actually, depending on who you talk to, it's not even restricted to just human beings. It's human beings with other life forms like dogs, cats, trees, nature, the earth, everything. It's all connected.
And I believe it all is connected. I think that spark of spirit is in everything. And this event, as I see it with COVID, was to awaken us back into that living spirit or deeper essence.
Well, let's hope we get some sort of a positive finale with this. And I use the term finale in hopes that this thing goes away and we can get back to our life, because it really has messed up people's lives, particularly with the people that I associate with who are performing artists. I mean, they've had their lives turned upside down because of this.
Well, I mean, the
And
suffering, there's no doubt the suffering, Douglas, is very real. And a lot of people have been affected, whether it's job loss or death, or as you were mentioning with performing artists, their livelihoods. I mean, it's had a very it's created a lot of suffering, but we can work with that suffering, and not to minimize it at all, but we can work with that suffering. And that's kind of the message I really tried to communicate in this book.
okay, great. We do have to wrap this up. Do you have a website that you want to give out so people can check you out, check out the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book COVID-19 and Humanity's Spiritual Awakening, it's available on Amazon right now, both an ebook and a paperback. And you can also check me out on my personal website, www.forrestrivers.com. And on that website, you can also check out my blog. I have daily writings on there that are meant to inspire.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your message and your book.